It had nothing to do with me whatsoever, but evidently everybody wants to hear what comments I have about Shannon Sharpe's interview with the one and only Katt Williams. Okay, fine, I'm here for it. And plus, Draymond Green isn't back on the court yet, but he's back on his podcast, and he's talking about me. Why? Lord have mercy. It's a new week of the Stephen A. Smith Show coming your way. Let's roll. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do at the very least every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over the digital airwaves of YouTube. As always, let me take a moment to thank my subscribers. It's now exceeded over 450,000 over the first 9 months. Thank you so much for your love and support. Keep it coming, and I'm going to keep on coming. Just continue to like and follow the show as you always do. You know, the bell will click, and boom, there you will be. Also, as while I'm doing this opening, I just wanted to remind y'all to get a copy of my best-selling book, Straight Shooter, a memoir of second chances and first takes. Not only is it in hardcover, New York Times bestseller, but now this month it went on paperback, so you can go to straightshooterbook.com to order the book as well. Keep the love coming, and I'm going to keep on coming. I got a lot of stuff to get into, so I'm going to be relatively quick. I'm coming at you live from Houston, Texas. I'm not in my studios, obviously. I'm on the road at a studio in Houston, Texas, because I'm here for the national championship game. I'm here for the national championship game going on between Michigan and Washington tonight at NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. I'm here for that. We did First Take on ESPN from 10 a.m. to 12 noon every weekday. We did the show this morning, myself and Shannon Sharpe, along with contributors like Adam Schefter and Harry Douglas, who were on the show and blessed us with their presence. And that's why we're here in Houston. That's why I'm in this particular studio. And that's why I'm going to try to be relatively quick with this podcast today. Before I get into Shannon Sharpe and the Katt Williams interview, let me fulfill my obligations in talking about a couple of sports items. Again, because I'm here in Houston, we've got a national championship game coming up. It comes down to this for me. I'm not going to belabor you with a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not a college football analyst. I'm not Paul Feinbaum. I'm not any of those guys that cover college football. I watch. I'll be in attendance for the game. I'm looking forward to an exciting game and what have you. But what it comes down to for me is this. It's Michigan's defense against that offensive line of the Washington Huskies. Now, they have been labeled, I'm talking about the Washington Huskies, as the best offensive line in all of college football. And because they're recognized as the best offensive line in college football because we saw Michigan bum rush Alabama in a national college football playoff semifinals game last Monday to be specific, we understand what's at stake here. We understand that if you can get to this kid, Michael Penix Jr., it's not going to be much of a contest. But the reality is he has an offensive line that ensures you're not going to be able to get to him but so much. He is an elite quarterback, make no mistake about it, incredibly athletic, and he's got a three-headed monster of wide receivers and Polk, Dunzy, and others, and I think McMillan, and these boys can ball, and they can put up points in bunches. And because that is the case, the question is, are you going to be able to do it against a Michigan defense that is this elite, that is this big time? I say to some degree, they're not going to be Alabama. They're going to be a better offense than Alabama because they're going to be a better offensive line than Alabama. If your running back Dylan Brooks is still hurt, or Dylan Johnson is still hurt, and it's a situation where he's not able to go or he's significantly hampered to the point where he's not really much of a threat, then that puts Washington behind the eight ball. I think that Michigan has an advantage here. I think their competition has been stiff, even though Washington has been beaten like 10 nationally ranked opponents. They're undefeated on the season. They beat Oregon twice. We get all of that. But in the end, I think what it comes down to is Michigan's defense. Michigan's got a bunch of rough riders. They're not playing in inclement weather because they'll be playing in a dome. Nevertheless, I'm going with Jim Harbaugh and Michigan to win the national title. I'm picking the score to be 31-27 Michigan. I think Harbaugh wins, and then I think he departs for the National Football League. He'll have an opportunity in Chicago. He'll have an opportunity in Atlanta. He'll have an opportunity in Los Angeles with the Chargers, according to what I've been hearing. I believe he should take the Chargers job because you got Justin Herbert there. And I think with Justin Herbert, if you get the right coach schooling him, I think the Los Angeles Chargers can challenge for a Super Bowl championship. So I'm going with Michigan to win the national title, 31-27, and Harbaugh to immediately depart for the National Football League. I don't believe he should take the Chicago Bears job, even though that's where he played when he was playing in his NFL career. That's one of the places he was playing at, and I don't think that's the right place for him to go. I think he should go to Los Angeles, California, and coach the Chargers. That's my opinion. Speaking of NFL, they call it Black Monday. I've always been opposed to that label. I can't stand it, but nevertheless, it is what it is. And there were several firings. The general manager for the Carolina Panthers, Scott Fitterer, was fired. He deserved it. Didn't get the job done. Watch the Commanders coach, Ron Rivera. He got fired. That was a foregone conclusion months ago. We know how awful the Commanders, the Commodores with Lionel Richie, the Commanders. We all know how awful they have been, and Ron Rivera just simply had to go. There's been 18 consecutive years that there's been a new division champion in the NFC East, and Washington has rarely been one of those teams to win the division. And so it's time for a change. And with Josh Harris as the new owner, with guys like Magic Johnson, as a part owner, helping to influence some of his decision making, with him now hiring the architect for the Golden State Warriors, the one and only Bob Myers, my colleague. On NBA Countdown for ABC, for ESPN as well. That guy, Bob Myers, is also going to be consulting and helping build their organization as well in the nation's capital. So props to Josh Harris for making those selections. But clearly Ron Rivera needed to go. Eric Bieniemy should receive strong consideration. But when you're a part of a team that nosedived the way this did, I think they're going to be looking to clean house, and they're not going to want any remnants of what they've just departed from to still exist. And I think that ultimately Eric Bieniemy will be a casualty of that. Hopefully he'll be able to go back to Kansas City, replace Matt Nagy, and be the offensive coordinator in Kansas City yet again under Andy Reeves, if he indeed ends up not getting the head coaching job with the Washington Commanders. And of course, Arthur Smith for the Atlanta Falcons. He's out as the head coach. Another 7-win season, another miss from the playoffs. He was let go, and he went down swinging yesterday, I should say unceremoniously, I might add, because he got blitzed. They lost 48-17 to the New Orleans Saints, with New Orleans needing a win to have a chance to win the NFC South, which they did not do because Tampa Bay ended up beating Carolina. But nevertheless, Arthur Smith made news yesterday because he got in the face of Dennis Allen, because up 41-17, the New Orleans Saints, from like the 1 or the 2 yard line, ran it in for a touchdown to pile up the score. And Arthur Smith was incredibly insulted by that. You could read his lips, and you could see him going up to Dennis Allen and saying, first, that's bullshit. And what was that? That's bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. Blah, 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 blah. You heard all of that. You saw all of that. Dennis Allen, because the initial reaction I had was, what a classless move to be up 41-17 and still running up the score. You should be ashamed of yourself. But Dennis Allen came in the post-game news conference, apologized to the Atlanta Falcons, apologized to Arthur Smith, and acknowledged that they were supposed to be in victory formation, and his players, led by Jameis Winston, a backup, decided to do something differently. And Jameis Winston literally supported and verbalized what his thoughts were in terms of the players overruling the coach and choosing to do what they did because they wanted to get one of their teammates a touchdown who hadn't had Jamal Williams a touchdown. He hadn't had a touchdown all year, and they wanted to get him a touchdown, and that was what happened. And as I said on First Take this morning, and I'll say it again here today, even though I didn't say it nearly as emphatically as my man Shannon Sharp did on First Take this morning, Jameis Winston, he said he'd cut Jameis Winston immediately. And I don't disagree with him. How the hell are you a reserve and you go sit up there and say we overruled the coach? What drug was he sniffing? He should immediately be exiled from the Saints roster. And Dennis Allen, you might as well quit because you're going to be fired. You have no control over the team. You've been a coach for 2 seasons, succeeding Sean Payton. You won 7 games last year. You won 9 games this year. It was a winning record, but you still didn't make the playoffs. You still didn't win your own division. And when you look at it from that perspective, and you've got players publicly admitting with microphones and cameras in front of them that they usurped your authority, that they overruled you, that they ignored your directive and did what they wanted to do, you have no control over the team. You have no control. When a backup, that is Jameis Winston, disrespects you like that, come on, man. Come on. You got to go. It's just that simple. Some people, ladies and gentlemen, are meant to be coordinators. Some people ain't meant to be overseers. They're not meant to be head coaches. They're not meant to be designated as leaders of men. Some people are not meant to do that. And if there's ever a case study for it, it's this one. A backup quarterback who, by the way, has spent time in the NFL as a third stringer, even though he won a national title at Florida State, and even though he was a starter in the NFL, first in Tampa and then New Orleans at one point in time. This man went in front of the microphones and the cameras and said that they dismissed a directive from their boss to do what they wanted to do. That means you have no control. And that means I need to get somebody in there, if I'm ownership with the New Orleans Saints, that's going to be able to flex their authority and make sure that their directives are followed. It's just that simple. So that's it for that. As it pertains to the firings for the time being. I'm sure more will come in the minutes and the hours to come, because this is the day after the NFL regular season has ended, which is when most of the firings take place. There's still a question mark about Bill Belichick, and according to reports, he's willing to cede authority over the organization as a general manager and what have you. And if they want him to just stay on as a coach, not making those other personnel decisions, he's happy to do that. Me personally, I think Bill Belichick should be gone. Not fired. Not fired like get out of here, we don't like you anymore. I'm talking about he should be gone as if we really, really appreciate the great work that you've done over the year, the 6 Super Bowl championships that you collaborated with Tom Brady to bring to us. We thank you for it. You'll be revered. We'll erect a statue if you want to for you outside of Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts if you want to. We just think it's time to completely move in a different direction. Period. And let Bill Belichick go and take one of these other jobs. Because when you look at this the offense of the New England Patriots, rife with individuals who simply can't get it done, Bill Belichick is directly responsible for that. When you look at the lack of offensive mind since Josh McDaniels departed, and you bring in a Joe Judge, a former special teams guy who was the head coach with the Giants, and a Matt Patricia, a former defensive coordinator who was the head coach with the Detroit Lions, and you pick them to be your offensive coordinator last year, derailing the progress of Mac Jones and setting him back 2-3 years, and completely compromising his career, you don't deserve to be in a position to make those kind of decisions anymore. Period. And that's what we have to look at. And so for me, I think it's time to move in a different direction. As it pertains to the playoffs, it's very, very simple to me. The 2 number 1 seeds should be the favorites. That would be the Baltimore Ravens versus the San Francisco 49ers to meet in the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Plain and simple. The number 1 threat to the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC is a team I believe to be the Cleveland Browns. Flacco is going to turn 39 years of age January 16th. The brother, since starting for the Cleveland Browns, is leading the NFL in terms of quarterbacks in passing yards. Average per game at 323. He's flinging a football over the field. Does he turn the ball over a little bit too much? Sure. But boy, can he fling that football. And with Amari Cooper as a number 1 option, with tight end Njoku as an option, with them still being able to run the football, and with that defense being as elite as Cleveland's defense is, I believe the Cleveland Browns are going to potentially make some noise in the postseason. They play Houston this coming weekend. Let's see what they do against Houston. And C.J. Stroud, he's a rookie. They should have a field day with him. But this brother, C.J. Stroud, is something special. And right now, I meant it when I said it on First Take this morning. There's only 2 quarterbacks I would definitively take ahead of him in Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Outside of that, maybe throw Josh Allen into the equation. But that's about it. The way C.J. Stroud is looking as a rookie, only 5 interceptions thrown this season, an interception percentage of 1%, 1 interception for every 100 passes thrown. This brother is special. But Cleveland, I think, is the number 1 threat to Baltimore. In the NFC, you've heard me say it. I'll say it for you again. The Dallas Cowboys are the number 1 threat to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC. The Dallas Cowboys right now are looking at the best chance they've ever had to reach the Super Bowl since 1995. I say this because Dak Prescott has been the best quarterback in the NFC. I say this because CeeDee Lamb has been the best wide receiver in the NFC. Lots of folks would argue. They've clearly been the best tandem duo in the NFC, if not all of football. And they are an entirely different team when they are on their home turf instead of being on the road. Now, had they not had the Detroit Lions not gotten robbed and they were granted that victory in Dallas a couple of weeks ago instead of some penalty because, they didn't follow proper procedure, which is just bogus to me, okay, then Detroit would be the ones having a home field advantage in a potential playoff series where they meet the Dallas Cowboys, and Dallas would have to come through Detroit before they were to go through San Francisco. That's not the case, however. And because that's not the case, if Detroit would have faced Dallas, Detroit would have to go to Dallas. And I don't think that they get a second bite at the apple and they end up taking Dallas out second go round. I think Dallas wins that game, which means that the San Francisco 49ers are our only hope for keeping those nauseating, disgusting Dallas Cowboy fans. The ones I talk about where if a nuclear bomb dropped, rats, roaches, and Cowboy fans would survive. That's what we're looking at. Me potentially having to hear, how about them Cowboys? All the damn time, which is just grates my last nerve. But it is what it is. Cowboys are no joke, and I'm going to give them love. Plain and simple. They'll lose. They ain't making it to Vegas. But I will concede that they're the number one threat to the San Francisco 49ers. And if the San Francisco 49ers were to face them again, there's but so many times you can romp a team before they wake up and they answer the call. They've lost. Dallas Cowboys have lost to San Francisco the last 2 years in the playoffs. And they got stomped by San Francisco this year in the regular season, 42-10. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's fair to say that at some point in time, the Dallas Cowboys got to stand up, and they will stand up, and let's see what happens. They're the number one threat to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC. The number one threat in all of football of San Francisco is the best team in football right now, which is the Baltimore Ravens. Let me move on because I don't know why everybody has wanted me to comment about Shannon Sharpe and his interview with Katt Williams. But I'm going to say this. You wanted me to comment about it? I'll comment about it. Before I say this, however, let me say, no matter what way you slice it, you have to give Shannon Sharpe and his team major props. The views for the Katt Williams interview has exceeded over 34 million. 34 million, ladies and gentlemen. This broke the internet. And in one day, because of one interview that has spanned over the last few days, Club Shay Shay for Shannon Sharpe has picked up over 600,000 subscribers. It's just big time. It's just big time. So props to Shannon Sharpe and his team on that point. Now, to get into the interview itself, let me say this. Before I say anything else, it's important to know I cringed. Through no fault of Shannon. I'm a huge fan of Katt Williams. This brother is a brilliant comedian. He's spectacular. He's box office, no doubt about it. And Katt Williams, he's one of the greatest comedians of all time. And he's always been incredibly nice to me on a couple of occasions that I've had the pleasure of meeting him. One time I was hanging out in his green room with him, for crying out loud. No, I was not smoking weed. I stayed off the weed. And I didn't see him do it, even though I'm sure if he did, he wasn't going to be apologetic about it. That's his business, his dressing room, whatever. Always been cool with Katt Williams. Don't know him that well, but mad respect for him and mad love for his talent. Steve Harvey is a friend. Kevin Hart is a friend. Cedric the Entertainer, I don't know nearly as well as I know Steve Harvey and Kevin Hart, although I've interviewed them on quite a few occasions. But I got love for Cedric the Entertainer. And to hear what Katt Williams had to say about them made me cringe. Because when you got a comedian that elite coming at you, and he's funny as hell and doing it, but he ain't telling any jokes. He ain't bullshitting, and he's saying what he's saying. it's like, damn. It's an ouch moment. I don't know what truth or falsehoods there is. I don't cover comedy. I know that when it came to, what was he talking about? Some show involving Steve Harvey. When it comes to that, I do know that the Steve Harvey show, because I wrote it down here, was created by Winifred Hervey, not Steve Harvey, and it was directed by Stan Lathan. Winifred Harvey is best known for her work on the television series Golden Girls, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin, and Sister Sister. I do know that. Outside of that, I don't know what truth or falsehood exists about anything or anybody. I don't cover comedy. All right? So I'm not in a position to say anything one way or the other. I'm just not. Having said all of that, that's not the reason I was willing to touch on this subject. I needed to touch on this subject, not just because the audience was asking me to, but I needed to touch on this subject once I saw this sound right here from Shannon Sharpe himself on Nightcap, talking his Nightcap show with Chad Ochocinco, talking about his interview with Katt Williams. Listen to this.
While all you guys said, well, Shannon, you needed a follow-up question with what? I said I didn't ask no follow-up question when said he didn't steal the joke.
Right.
That's not for me to decide. You decide.
Mm-hmm.
You decide who do you agree with. That's not my decision to make. That was it. I never said I was a journalist. I never professed to be a journalist. I'm an entertainer. If you want hard-hitting questions, 60 Minutes is the platform from you.
Right.
Dateline, 48 Hours. Go to Lester Holt. Go to somebody that does that.
That is where my problem lied. Shannon Sharpe did not tell a lie. Shannon Sharpe is not a journalist. He's a Hall of Fame football player who's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, arguably the greatest tight end in football, and clearly one of them, who also happens to be an entertainer. He did not tell a lie. But Shannon Sharpe cut himself short. Shannon Sharpe is a voice in our community. He's Unc. He's conscientious. He's thoughtful. I'm telling you the Shannon Sharpe I've come to know. I've known him for years, but I ain't really know him. I love this brother. I love who he is. I got a hell of a lot of respect for him. And he's kicking ass. Got the #1 podcast on Apple in sports podcast. Got #3 overall podcast for Apple. He doing his damn thing. And this brother's going to continue to be a star in this business for years to come. Remember, you're talking to the dude who went and got him. I went and got him because I knew what he'd bring. Yes, First Take on ESPN, #1 morning show. Been #1 for 12 years. And on a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, when Shannon ain't there, we still winning. We #1. But it ain't like we winning on Monday and Tuesdays. And I love every single contributor on my show. It's very, very few people on the planet Earth that can look at a show and have more than 10, 11, 12 contributors, and every single thing I've asked them to do, they've all come through. Love my brothers, Ryan Clark, Swagoo, Dan Orlovsky, Mad Dog Russo, Bart Scott, Kendrick Perkins, Jay Williams, Chris Canty, let me not forget him, a new addition to the show. Harry Douglas doing a great job for us when he shows up. Kimberly Martin, Monica McNutt, Mina Kimes, and of course, great Molly Karam, the matriarch of the show. Everybody has done an outstanding job. Shannon's been off the charts. Shannon's been off the charts. And I knew how this industry would be. How they would go and try to blackball his ass. when he was let go by FS1. And make no mistake, that's what happened. That's his business to tell. But he was pushed out. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I remember when I got pushed out in 2009. I wasn't going to let that happen to this brother. Because he's too gifted, he's too talented. He's too significant to our community. That's why I'm bringing all of this up. It's not about me. This is his day. He's the one that got the Katt Williams interview. He's the one that sat down and talked to him. He did all of that. He's the one that got 34 million plus people looking at this interview, broke the damn internet. It's going to get larger, by the way. I think they're going to reach about 50 million. It's one of, if not, at the end, I believe at the end of it all, it will be, in terms of strictly numbers, the most significant podcast episode in history. It'll eclipse what Joe Rogan once did. It will eclipse what others have done. Because Katt Williams turned it out. Shit, he talked for 30 minutes before Shannon asked the question. He came there to say what he said. And to agree or disagree, that's for all of them to handle. Steve Harvey, Kevin Hart, Cedric the Entertainer, Ricky Smiley, Mark Curry, Tiffany Haddish, whoever else he talked about, that's for them. Tyler Perry, that's for them to handle. Because I don't know those facts. I don't cover that. And I've never, ever had a conversation with any of them about Katt Williams or vice versa. Ain't my place. But what I can speak to is Shannon limiting himself to being just an entertainer. He is not. He's more than that. He's a voice. And when he called himself an entertainer, that took me aback. Because I know he's not. This brother knows football inside and out. He teaches me football every day. Just listen to him talking. Just so you, he knows it backwards and forwards. But he's a conscientious brother who cares about a lot of different issues. And when he speaks on it, he attacks it with fervor and vigor. He is to be respected and appreciated in ways that most people, quite frankly, haven't done enough of. And so my only words to him is that, nah, bro, you a voice. You ain't just an entertainer. You don't ever want to give the impression that, you know what? You can just say what you want because I'm not a journalist. You don't have to be a journalist. All you need to do is be you and be that conscientious observer that you are. Now, there's a lot of people out there that's going to criticize him and they're going to talk about, well, he didn't do follow-up or he didn't do this, he didn't do that. Stop that, you jealous asses. Stop it. I'm the professional journalist. Would I have done more follow-ups? Probably. That's not the point. The point is, Steve Harvey came on his show and said whatever it is that he said. I never saw that interview. Cedric the Entertainer came on the show and said whatever it was he said. So if Katt Williams wanted to come on the show and say what he said, then I understand where Shannon is coming from. Would I have done things differently? Maybe, because I'm a journalist at heart. I wasn't good enough to be some damn Hall of Famer and the greatest tight end in the history of football. He does his show his way. I do my shows my way. Somebody else does this show their ways. Joe Rogan is different than Bill Simmons, who's different than Shannon, who's different than me, who's different than Podcast P, who's different than Draymond, who's different than a whole bunch of other people. That's the way it goes. But the one thing I was qualified to speak on was Shannon telling the world he's not a journalist. Go watch 60 Minutes. Go watch Dateline. Go watch 48 Hours. Nah, bro, they watching you. They watching you. And because they're watching you, don't ever call yourself just anything. Because you're not. Unc is my brother. It's my man. I will never, ever stop being gracious and grateful to him for coming on First Take. I'm sure he had options. It might not have been for the immediate moment in television because, like I said, I thought he was on the verge of being blackballed. And I wasn't about to let that happen. But what he's doing with Club Shay Shay and what he's doing with Nightcap and what he's doing with all these other... No, that's Shannon. That's Shannon. And I'm going to always support that brother, even when I disagree with him. And I'm not saying that's the case here or anything. Because I don't know what the truth is, what it isn't. I don't know. But I'm going to always root for that brother. That brother shows up to work. He does his job. He's about winning. And he's about doing what it takes to win. And the success that myself and Molly and the rest of our team has been able to enjoy on First Take, although that success was there before he ever arrived, there is no question he has been an incredible asset since he has arrived. And big things are in his future. And I got news for you, Shannon. It ain't there just because you're an entertainer. It's there because you a hell of a lot more than that, brother. Rising tides lift all boats. Shannon, nor anybody else is going to stop me from getting mine. But I got news for y'all. I ain't going to stop them from getting theirs either. If anything, I'm going to help. And that goes for Shannon. That goes for Ryan Clark on the pivot. It goes for Swagoo, Marcus Spears. It goes for my man Kendrick Perkins. It goes for all my brothers and sisters that I work with. But I don't ever want to hear any of them limiting themselves to calling themselves an entertainer. You more than that. A hell of a lot more than that. And I'm proud to say that because you deserve it. This ain't about the interview. That's a different subject for another day with somebody that's more enlightened about the comedic world than me. I'm talking about Shannon Sharpe, the person. And I'm talking about Shannon Sharpe, the figure that he has become in this industry. He's not going anywhere. He's only getting bigger. And it ain't just because he's an entertainer. He's more than that. Just remember that, bro. Just remember that. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Back with more, specifically Mr. Draymond Green and something he had to say about me in a minute. What's that? What you put in the desk box on my desk for?
Open it. Just open it. Just open it.
Man, you couldn't have opened it for me? What? Yeah. Ah, my new book on paperback. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. It works for me. It works for me. Y'all see this. New foreword and all. Stephen A. in paperback. Straight shooter. Memoir, second chances and first takes. I haven't gotten over that picture. It does look pretty smooth. I must say so myself. It's a bestseller. I'll hold on to this. Hope you go out and get it. Thank y'all so much for the love and support. Wouldn't be here without you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube, coming at you at the very least every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Needless to say, I'm not in my studio. I'm in undisclosed location in H-Town, Houston, Texas, site of the national championship game tonight between the Michigan Wolverines and the Washington Huskies. So because I was in town doing First Take on ESPN this morning from the field itself and scheduled to be at the game tonight, that is why I'm doing the podcast from this undisclosed location in H-Town. If I seem a bit exasperated, it is because of certain subjects that I have to get into that I just can't let slide. And the latest is involving Draymond Green, who recently had his suspension lifted by Commissioner Adam Silver in the league office. He had been gone for 12 games, courtesy of the slap/punch that he did to the face of Yusuf Nurkic in early December, and he had been gone for a while. And now the suspension has been lifted. He's scheduled to come back in a matter of days or so, if not sooner, and we wish him nothing but the best. But he had some things to say about me, and I will address them shortly because I'm pretty pissed off about it, to be quite honest with you. And I'll explain why in a minute. But before I do, let me get to a couple of NBA items just to get out of the way. Number one, Lakers beat the Clippers Monday night. So what? They still stink. LeBron James doesn't. Anthony Davis doesn't. But the rest of their squad, they need to step up and handle their business. Shaquille O'Neal recently called out Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura and talked about how they needed to step up. But that's nothing different than what I said days earlier. They do need to step up. As a matter of fact, I want to step further. And I said they betrayed LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You have two superstars. You got Anthony Davis playing. Anthony Davis, I'm shocked. He's only missed a couple of games. I'm going to lose my bet to Shannon Sharp that he'd miss at least 17 games by Valentine's Day. He's been absolutely spectacular while playing, averaging 30 and 12 on better than 50% shooting. He has been elite. And by the way, a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year honors. So let's get that out the way about him. LeBron James, 39 years of age in his 21st season, doing the things that he's doing. I mean, what can you say? But if I'm a Los Angeles Laker, do you know how embarrassed I would be if my resident superstar, who's a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, or arguably the second greatest player in the history of basketball, that is LeBron James? You know how embarrassed I would be if I heard him say that his son, Bronny James, who's playing at USC in his first year, could play on the Lakers right now? Do you know what an indictment that is against you if you're anybody outside of Anthony Davis? You have any idea how embarrassing that is? Any idea? Because it is. That's what LeBron James said. And a lot of people look at it and they say, oh, my goodness, Bronny James must know how to play and all that. Of course he believes in his son. Of course he's hoping that his son will get to the NBA. He's unapologetic about that. He wants to be in the NBA long enough to play alongside his son. We all know that. But that's not how I interpreted his comments the other day about Bronny James. The other day about Bronny James when LeBron James said what he said about his son, I interpreted it as my son is good enough to be on this squad right now. Because some of y'all ain't. They've betrayed him and Anthony Davis because they haven't shown up. Rob Pelinka too, Jeannie Buss as well. They kept the team together. And y'all look like straight garbage. And the fact that y'all go out on the court and y'all beat the Los Angeles Clippers last night is proof of how lackadaisical and unfocused y'all have been, because y'all should have been able to beat a plethora of other teams and you haven't. And you're still a game mired under 500 and you're in a 10th spot in the Western Conference. Today, you would be in a 10th spot playing the play-in tournament. The play-in tournament. You should be ashamed of your damn selves. You better sleep at the wheel. And I'll say what I said before. I'll say it again. If I was Rob Pelinka, if I was Jeannie Buss, I'd get the rest of the players outside of Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and I'd take them for a little ride. I'd make sure the sun is shining. It's at least 80 degrees outside. I'd drive them around Los Angeles, the palm trees, the sunshine, and everything that comes with it. I'd do all of that. I'd do all of that. And you know what I'd do? I'd turn around and say, you want to be here? You better start playing like you know something. Hell y'all doing? Looking like straight garbage half the time. Get your shit together. That's what I'd say. Moving on from that, I'd be remiss in neglecting to mention my New York Knicks. My New York Knicks. New York, stand up. I ain't going that far yet. I never had a problem with the OG Anunoby trade from the standpoint of recognizing that he was going to improve their defense exponentially. My issue with the OG Anunoby trade wasn't R.J. Barrett either, and I don't give a damn that he dropped 37 or 39 against the Golden State Warriors the other night, who, by the way, looked bad than damn selves. Forget about that team being kept together in Golden State, by the way. Just forget that. Joe Lacob ain't having that. This is the end. He ain't keeping this team together. I promise you that. I promise you that. He's not going to settle for this. Not with Steph Curry still looking the way that he looks. He's got to get him some additional help. But then again, we'll see what they do once Draymond gets back into the lineup. I say this, however, getting back to my New York Knicks. I didn't expect them to be winners of 3 or 4 straight. I expected them to beat the Wizards. I didn't expect them to blow out Philadelphia the other night. I didn't expect them to beat Minnesota the way that they did, but they've done that. And I got to give love where love is due. I'm a bit reluctant to give that to Leon Rose because I think that there's a dereliction of duty on his part in terms of really selling the franchise to the public, hiding away and having other people on the phone negotiating on his behalf and all of this other stuff. I don't like it. I don't like how he's failed to ingratiate himself with the public at large. I don't like it. But in the end, the New York Knicks do look better. OG Anunoby is an upgrade. Defensively, significantly, I might add. Offensively, he doesn't get in the way of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, who really stepped their games up. Albeit Julius Randle only had 8 points against Philadelphia. That's beside the point. The brothers balling. Jalen Brunson is an all-star. Make no mistake about that. He's an all-star this year. And he's one of the best point guards in the game. And I look at the Knicks without Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein, coming in and balling the way that he's balling, a 7-footer, 250-pounder, active, fights, feisty. He's a Tom Thibodeau kind of player. Mad love and respect to him. Okay? Dante DiVincenzo, like what he's giving him. Grimes, he doesn't look comatose anymore. But I miss Emmanuel Quickly. I miss those 15 points off the bench. I miss that runner-up for 6th man of the year. I miss that Energizer Bunny and spark plug. I think he's a poor man's version of Tyrese Maxey. I like Emmanuel Quickly. And I think the Knicks are going to miss him. And as elite as I think their defense is, as important as I know defense to be, I am a bit concerned as to whether or not the New York Knicks are going to be able to make any noise in the Eastern Conference. Now, I will say I like this. Right now, they've moved up from a 7th or 8th slot to the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. I think that's incredibly important because I think for the New York Knicks to really have the potential to make some noise, I think it's incredibly, incredibly important for the New York Knicks to get a top 4 seed. I really believe that. I really believe that. I think that right now, the New York Knicks could beat Philly. They could beat Miami. They could beat Milwaukee, who's a shell of themselves defensively, which is why Giannis has been complaining about them. I truly believe that. I truly believe that. They ain't beating Boston. They're not beating Boston. They ain't beating Tatum and Brown and Porzingis and them. They're not doing it. With Drew Holiday and Derek White in your backcourt, they're not doing that. They're just not. Milwaukee's a different animal because they've been compromised defensively. Philadelphia is a question mark because of their depth. Outside of Embiid and Maxey, who can you really rely upon? I know Tobias Harris can play. Okay? I know others can contribute, but who can you rely on? And with the Miami Heat, I'm going to say this to you. I thought they had a very disappointing offseason because they didn't get Damian Lillard. They would have had to give up Tyler Hero in that trade. You see Tyler Hero balling? I can't ignore that. This kid out of UCLA, Jaime Jaquez, this kid can play. He's an all-rookie team member. This brother can play. So, considering the size that they have in their backcourt, with Jaquez, with a Butler, with a Tyler Hero, with Bam Adebayo, believing that he should be a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year honors, with some of the personnel they have, with the exceptional coaching of Eric Spoelstra, with the fact that Miami beat the New York Knicks in 6 games in last year's Eastern Conference semifinals. Yes, the Knicks could beat them, but I can't designate them the favorites over Miami. So that means at the very least, I got 2 teams that could take you out, and the other 2 teams that are question marks are led by Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo, none of whom the Knicks have. Their best player is Jalen Brunson, who's a 6'1 lefty. I don't know about that. I got my reservations. But I can't deny that the trade looks good right now, that the New York Knicks look better, that the New York Knicks are formidable. I can't deny any of that. But it doesn't mean that they're gonna get out of the first round. It damn sure doesn't mean they're gonna get out of the semifinals. And if they haven't improved upon last year, then what have they really done? And I'm saying to you, there's a difference between playing to win and playing not to lose. And when you look at management, even though their moves have been good and we give them credit, in the same breath, it's about patience. It's about time. It's about the marathon, not the sprint. That's what they want to tell us while they hold 11 picks over the next 8 years or 7 years. I'm saying at some point in time, you got to pull a trigger. And you got to get a bona fide number one scoring option. Jalen Brunson should not be your number one option. Julius Randle should not be your number one option. Julius Randle shouldn't be your number two option. They need to get a number one option with Jalen Brunson as the number two, with Julius Randle needing to be a number three option. That's what they need to do. Whether that's, I think it's a Donovan Mitchell, not a Zach LaVine, not a DeJounte Murray, even though I think DeJounte Murray would be a good acquisition for the New York Knicks, because him in the backcourt, since he has more size than a Jalen Brunson, him in the backcourt with Jalen Brunson at the off guard spot, capable of subbing for Jalen at the one when Jalen goes to the bench, I think would be good. It's one of the two, him or Donovan Mitchell. But I prefer Donovan Mitchell, who the Knicks are tied with for the 5th seed, by the way, with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now let me get into what I really wanted to spend this segment talking about. Draymond Green recently, because of the suspension and because of therapy and because of a lot of things that he was addressing, he admittedly was addressing himself, hadn't been seen recently over the last few weeks during the Christmas holidays and beyond. But he came out and he came on this podcast and he spoke. And somehow my name came up because Draymond Green was talking about how he had an opportunity to reflect on some of the decisions and some of the litany of mistakes that he has made, et cetera, et cetera. And then from that point forward, he wanted to speak to me about, not speak to me, but he wanted to express himself about something he heard I said. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Draymond Green on his podcast, speaking about yours truly and something he alleges I said about Steph Curry. Listen to this.
One thing throughout this process that really hurt me, I turned on the TV screen and someone, Stephen A. was like, Steph is a bad leader because Draymond did X. It pissed me off, but it crushed me. It crushed me because how is Steph enduring being a bad leader? Like, this guy doesn't give us anything to tear him down about. This guy does everything the right way. And yet he's being tore down because my actions crushed me. That was a tough one. That was a tough blow to deal with. Because he got crushed publicly for that, I'm going to apologize publicly. I sincerely apologize to Steph for my actions.
Do you really, really need to know why I'm pissed right now? Why I'm so fucking pissed off? Excuse my language, but it's necessary right now. Before I go any further, ladies and gentlemen, let me come to my own defense, please. And let me show you proof that what Draymond Green said simply is not true. Take a look at me commenting about Steph Curry, just as Draymond Green alluded to. Look at this.
What about Steph Curry? You are the leader. If this were a teammate of LeBron James, we'd be asking LeBron, what you going to do about it? Even though LeBron isn't the one that did something like that. We would have been asking. We would have been pointing to his leadership. We've been pointing to the incredible role model that he is, the leader, the champion, the kind of impact and influence that he has. And we lean on all of those things to say LeBron, 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 even if it had nothing to do with LeBron. But somehow, some way, we never asked that question about the babyface assassin who's the greatest shooter on the planet Earth, who's a 4-time champion and a 2-time league MVP, who, by the way, is class personified, and I can't think of a greater role model than Steph Curry.
There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the sound for yourself. You heard the sound for yourself. See, I keep receipts. Did you hear me say that Steph Curry was a bad leader? Did those words ever come out of my mouth? Did they come out of my mouth? Did you hear me say that Steph Curry was a bad leader? The answer is no. Draymond Green, that is false. That is erroneous. That is not true. But Draymond Green, you ain't the one I'm pissed at. It's that damn Steve Kerr. Because that man, who I religiously call one of the top 5 greatest coaches and a very, very decent and good person, goes in front of microphones and cameras and talk about how disgusted he was that folks was talking about the leadership. I give Draymond credit. At least he had the courage to say my name. Because Draymond has courage. And Draymond ain't duplicitous. And he ain't passive aggressive. And he doesn't allude to things. He says what he says. And he stands on it. And I respect that. Steve Kerr didn't do that. Everybody and their mother knew that Steve Kerr was talking about me when he was talking about how disgusted he was that people were questioning Steph Curry's leadership. I didn't question Steph Curry's leadership. Steph Curry leads by example. Steph Curry is one of the most decent, classy, nicest human beings you will ever meet in your life. He doesn't have a discourteous or disrespectful bone in his body. He's a family man. He's a God-fearing individual. He is class personified. He is a future Hall of Famer. He is one of the greatest players the NBA has ever seen, and without question, the greatest shooter that has ever graced this sport in the history of the game. You could talk about Del Curry. You could talk about the days of downtown Freddie Brown. You could talk about the days of Ricky Pierce, Dale Ellis, Allen Houston, Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, Larry Bird himself. The list goes on and on and on. You can sit up there and talk about the Ray Allens, the Kyle Korvers, the J.J. Reddicks of the world. Pick anybody you want. There has never been a shooter in the history of basketball greater than Steph Curry. Those are the things that I say about this man. So why did I bring him up when it came to Draymond? I can understand why Draymond was put off by what I said, because it implied that Steph Curry was responsible for him in some capacity. If that's Draymond's interpretation, my apologies, because I certainly didn't mean to imply that. Draymond is his own man, and he stands on his own 2 feet. And he ain't trying to look for anybody else to lead him. He considers himself that alpha male, that leader. That's not what I was saying. What I was saying was, we live in a day and age where if this were LeBron James, we would have been all over him. We would have said, where's the leadership? That's your team. When Kyrie Irving had issues in Cleveland, what's up, LeBron? When J.R. Smith made mistakes, what's up, LeBron? When stuff was happening in Miami, we gave him a reprieve then because D. Wade was there and Pat Riley was there. But when he went to L.A., anytime there's any kind of struggle on or off the court, what's up, LeBron? And all I was saying was, why would we do that to LeBron, but not do that to Steph Curry? What's good for the goose is good for everybody. If you're going to do that to LeBron, do it to everybody. If you're not going to do it to Steph Curry, don't do it to anybody. If we're going to look at Draymond and say, this is you, and it wasn't about leadership implementing itself into your psyche so you wouldn't find yourself in precarious predicaments to do some of the things that you do. If we're not going to say that about Steph Curry with Draymond, why would we say it about LeBron with anybody? Why would we say it about Kevin Durant with Kyrie in Brooklyn? Why would we not have said it about Kyrie with anybody in Boston when they were a relatively young team and he went there proclaiming to be a leader? We look at leaders all the time and say, what's up? Not just about what they're doing behind the scenes, but what they're doing for public consumption. Because appearances and perception matters. So if that is what we're doing, why did that not apply to Steph Curry? I was asking the question because I wanted those people who do things like that to have an answer. And Steve Kerr ran with it, which pissed me off. He ran with it by trying to imply that people were questioning Steph Curry's leadership. And what we were saying was, no. We was asking, if you're going to question other people's leadership for the same predicament, why would you not question Steph Curry? Then maybe we shouldn't question Steph Curry at all. That's what we were saying. And that's what I'm talking about. Back to Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors. That pissed me off. Because you see, what happens is when it comes to the media, rather than listen to what people actually say and hold them accountable, headlines and whatever perceptions you want to create that could ultimately foment cynicism in their direction is what some people do. I'm not accusing Draymond Green of doing that. I'm accusing Steve Kerr of doing that. And I did not appreciate that. There have been a lot of issues that have gone on with the Golden State Warriors throughout the years. If it were another team, if it were Giannis in Milwaukee, when Embiid had issues with when there were issues with Ben Simmons, we talked about Embiid. When there were issues with Jimmy Butler and wanting to stay, we talked about Embiid. When Butler was in Philadelphia and decided to depart for South Beach, we talked about Embiid. We talked about Giannis in Milwaukee. We're talking about him now. And we certainly have talked about LeBron throughout the years. We talked about Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. We talked about CP3's leadership, knowing he's a leader, wondering whether it was the right kind of leadership because he's in your face and he holds you accountable. We talked about all those things. What's wrong with asking the question? So the experts who are intimately involved with the leadership and the influence and the impact of Steph Curry could provide an answer that provides clarity for us all. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? That's not questioning Steph Curry. It was an opportunity for those to explain what a great leader Steph Curry is and why. Just like those took the liberty to do so for LeBron. That's all. So when Draymond says what he says, I'm like, where'd that come from? Did you hear what I had to say? I talked to Draymond quite a few times during the NBA season. Brilliant basketball mind, really good brother. Obviously, he's made some mistakes that he's had to address, but ain't nobody rooting for him harder than me. That's my dog. I love him to death. But for people to look and to twist and turn what I'm saying, now I'm not going for that. That ain't right. I don't question the leadership of Steph Curry. I'm questioning why no one had questions about him, but they had questions about LeBron. Fair is fair. At least admit that all of us should have left LeBron alone. When he was bothered about every little thing every one of his teammates or somebody in his organization did. That's all I was trying to say. 888-SAS-5303. That's 888-727-5303. That's usually the number to call into the Stephen A. Smith Show when I'm taking live callers. But as you know, when I'm on the road, I do not take live calls. I take your tweets instead with your questions. So stick around. I'll have some of them for you to close out the show. Don't touch that dial. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Back with more in a minute. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Before I get to your text messages to close out the show, Joe Coy, do you know who he is? He would happen to be a comedian who hosted Sunday night's Golden Globe Awards for the first time. Some people thought he did a great job. Others thought otherwise. That's neither here nor there. I was watching the Buffalo Bills-Miami Dolphins game, to be quite honest with you, even though I did take a moment to get to see Angela Bassett. My God. Ladies, you want an inspiration? Go look at this beautiful black sister, Angela Bassett, show up on the Golden Globes Awards with that black, I think it's black satin dress, just spectacular. Courtney Vance is a very, very lucky man. I'm going to leave it at that, but I'm telling you this. The woman is in her 60s. That's all you need to know. I want you to hold on to that. And I don't know her exact age, never looked it up, but I think I heard somebody tell she's in her 60s. She's in her 60s. Go look at her. I just wanted to throw that out there. Anyway, back to Joe Coy. Apparently, some trending news took place because he did a joke about Taylor Swift and got a death stare. They call it a death stare from Taylor Swift, who wasn't laughing at all when he said what he said. And apparently what he said was specifically the big difference between the Golden Globes and the NFL. On the Golden Globes, we have fewer camera shots of Taylor Swift. Ladies and gentlemen, do you realize that there was backlash for that? I'm really concerned about what the hell this world is coming to. Now, whether Taylor Swift smiled or not is irrelevant. If she didn't like the joke, she didn't like the joke. I heard she came on to say that, you know, she's not aware of how, when she's going to be on camera, how often she's going to be on camera, or whatever. Taylor Swift, first of all, stop. You're a superstar, and you deserve it, by the way. I went to see your concert. It was spectacular. It was one of the greatest concerts I've ever seen in my life. It was spectacular. Spectacular, Taylor. You have fans all over the globe. All over the globe. When you walk anywhere, into any place, stop acting like the camera on you is a surprise. Respectfully, stop. That's BS. You know it. That's number one. Number two, when you're in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium, which I suspect you'll be there this weekend when they go up against the Miami Dolphins, Taylor Swift, you're likely going to be in the suite with the Kelsey clan, right? Mama, Pops, whomever, I don't know. You don't think the camera's going to find you? Of course it will. You may not know how often. You may not know specifically when you're on or when you're off, but chances are anything you do short of going into the bathroom stall, you're going to be on camera. And you know it. Stop acting like you don't know. I'm not saying that's the reason you're there. I'm not saying that's the reason you're doing it. I'm not saying any of that. Travis Kelce, my brother from another mother. I mean, please. I ain't going to never knock a woman for showing him love. So I'm quite sure you're very fond of him. I'm not here to question. That's none of my business. I'm simply saying you're Taylor Swift. Cameron's going to follow you. But here's what really concerns me. How the hell was that cruel? The big difference between the Golden Globes and the NFL? On the Golden Globes, we have fewer camera shots of Taylor Swift. That's a reason to be offended? Not just to Taylor Swift, to us as an audience. How is that offensive? What did he say? What? You can't tell jokes? That is as harmless of a joke as there is. Less camera shots of Taylor Swift at the Golden Globes than the NFL. That is as harmless, as innocuous, as unoffensive as it gets. What are we going to do next? Why don't we just sit up there and say, why don't we just admit you got a whole bunch of people out there soft as hell, can't take anything. Y'all going to put comedians out of business. Laughter is valuable, y'all. It's a huge commodity for laughter. Laughter is a huge commodity. I want to laugh. You get a good joke on somebody, so be it. Hell, y'all on there talking about my hairline every chance you get. Like, I give a damn. I'm sorry I hate to break this news to you. I think I look good. Sorry, but I do. Hairline or no hairline. May I go to hair club for men? Sure, because I can look better. But I think I look good. Ladies and gentlemen, when I threw out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium and embarrassed myself with that damn choke job, First Take came and did 2 hours teasing me on the first pitch. I'm the executive producer of the show. You know what I did? Step aside and took it because I deserved it. Period. It ain't the end of the world. It's not like I got knocked out by Jake Paul like Nate Robinson or Tyron Woodley. Two dudes I respect and love, by the way. That's something I might not want to be seeing by people or hear from people for a while over. This, the big difference between the Golden Globes and the NFL, on the Golden Globes, we have fewer camera shots of Taylor Swift. That's a reason to be offended? What the hell is wrong with y'all? We have become a really soft-ass society. We can't take anything. Seriously, this is embarrassing that this guy actually may end up taking heat for that innocuous joke. So what? Taylor Swift didn't like it. It wasn't offensive. But the reality is there have been a lot of camera shots of her at NFL games. That is factual. Fact number 2, there are more cameras at NFL games than there are at the Golden Globes. That's fact. That's fact. What's the problem? If our society doesn't take a turn and grow the hell up quick, we gonna find ourselves muzzled in so many different ways. There's not gonna be room for a whole bunch of shit to happen that's that's productive and beneficial to our society as a whole. I love comedians. Katt Williams, Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, Chris Rock. The list goes on and on and on. Mad love for all of these brothers. I hope they continue making us laugh for years to come. I know there's community. I hope that there's comedians on the come up that's going to be just as great as Martin was, as Richard Pryor was, as Eddie Murphy was and still is. I hope. I love comedy. It's a joke, y'all. It's a joke. Damn. We really are sad. Seriously. Tweets before I get on out of here. At Randy_Vision writes, Stephen A., who would you take 5-on-5? 5 Jokic-sized Matthew Dellavedovas? Or 5 Matthew Dellavedova-sized Jokic? I prefer will over skill under normal circumstances. And I think that's required in the sport of basketball. But I would tell you this. If I had 5 Jokic-sized Matthew Dellavedovas, all I need is a couple of scorers. The rest would take care of itself because Matthew Dellavedova was Energizer Bunny personified. That's what I would say. At Apple Soup 300 writes, Stephen A., my wife said I've been watching too much basketball. She says she is going to leave me, but I may call her bluff. Do I watch the Hornets-Bulls game tonight? My brother, at Apple Source 300, I'd divorce your ass today. I would divorce your ass today if I was your wife, based on the last sentence in this tweet. Now, I'm not one for bullying. I'm not one for blackmail. I'm not one for ultimatums. So I don't take kindly to those. And your wife shouldn't have gave you an ultimatum about stop watching these basketball games or I'm going to leave you. But you say you're going to call her bluff, and then the example you use is the Charlotte Hornets versus the Chicago Bulls. That's what it is. It's not Boston versus Milwaukee. It's not the Lakers versus the Nuggets or the Lakers versus the Clippers. It's not even Oklahoma City versus Denver or Minnesota versus Denver or Denver versus Boston or the Lakers versus Milwaukee. It's the Charlotte Hornets and the Chicago Bulls. I divorce your ass today. You don't deserve your wife. You don't deserve her because of the selection you picked. Now, if it been one of those games, I'd feel differently. I'd say to you, hey, man, find a compromise. Happy wife, happy life. You understand what I'm saying? Even though one person pointed out, I don't remember who it was, they pointed out on social media the other day, that's a bit unfavoring. That's not fair to men. You understand what I'm saying? He said something about happy spouse, happy house. That's better than happy wife, happy life. See, that's the happy wife, happy life is for the woman. Happy spouse, happy house is for the home and the unit. I like that better. Find a compromise, make her happy. But if you're not going to make her happy and you're going to risk losing her, to put all of that in jeopardy for the Bulls versus the Hornets, you should be ashamed of your damn self. I can't think of a more embarrassing tweet I've seen. Shame on you. Shame on you. At Levon21 writes, Stephen A., what is the one mega boxing match you want to see in 2024 other than Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez? Excellent question. It would have been Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. But I kind of like Wilder versus Anthony Joshua, even though Wilder just lost, didn't show up in his last fight, was just inactive, just wasn't throwing punches the way he's capable of, got hit with a few himself, by the way. I'm going to tell you the one I want to see. I want to see Terrence Crawford versus the junior middleweight champion of the world, Jamel Charlo. Charlo that just lost to Alvarez. He was too small for Canelo Alvarez. Too small. I'm not knocking him for being on his bicycle throughout the fight. You hit the man and the man keeps on coming. Plus, you know he has the power and the speed to knock you out. No, you run from that, brother. You hit him, and once you hit him and it didn't matter, you keep it moving. You keep it moving. That's what Charlo did. And I applaud him for the boxing that he showed me, his ability to move and get away. But Terrence Crawford is his weight class. That's his size. And I'm telling you right now, even though he's at 154 and Crawford's at 147, even though they could meet, they could meet at 150 or whatever it is, or Crawford could move up to 154, I don't want to see Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. I think Errol Spence Jr., and I love him as a person, I truly do. What a nice guy. And he was undefeated. But the lopsided fashion in which he got beat up by Terrence Crawford, I think Terrence Crawford would destroy him in a rematch. I really do. I think it'll be very, very bad. Errol Spence got a beating. And I was very happy there was no rematch in December. I think that Errol Spence Jr. got beat so bad he didn't need to fight for a year. And that opinion was supported by the great Teddy Atlas, who came on this show in the aftermath of Crawford's beatdown over Errol Spence Jr. to say that Errol Spence needed to take at least a year off. I'm going to trust Teddy Atlas on that. But in this particular situation, I will tell you, Charlo versus Terrence Crawford, as much talk, as much chirping as they do at one another. Remember when Crawford dropped Spence in the fight, he went to the opposite corner and was talking smack while Crawford was down and receiving a count before he got up and stuff like that. Crawford went looking for Charlo and was talking shit to Charlo from the ring while he was beating up Errol Spence Jr. I'm telling you, watching Charlo, yes, if you're somebody that just knows how to come at Terrence Crawford but don't know how to do anything else, like Spence appeared in that last fight, that would be different. But watching Charlo, knowing how to move and how to evade, knowing the skills that he normally brings to the boxing ring, combined with his ability to move that he showed me against Canelo Alvarez, I want to see that fight. Charlo versus Crawford. That's the big fight. And I wouldn't mind seeing Gervonta Davis move up to fight Crawford, but I think that's asking a bit too much when you're accustomed to fighting at 135, even though you obviously fight bigger guys in sparring. I think Crawford and Charlo is the fight we should all want to see. I wouldn't mind seeing Teofimo Lopez versus Gervonta Davis either. I know Haney just beat Prograis. I know he just beat him. But I'm of the mindset that Haney, superb boxer. But I want to see Gervonta Davis. I want to see Haney versus Gervonta Davis first before I see Haney versus Teofimo Lopez. And I wouldn't mind seeing Teofimo Lopez versus Gervonta Davis. I'd actually want to see that fight. Even though Haney deserves it, I'd actually rather see that fight at 140 rather than Gervonta Davis moving up to fight Crawford at 147. The fight for Crawford is him versus Charlo. That's the fight I want to see. That is the fight I want to see. Last question before I get on out of here. Stephen A., what would you say is the key to gaining satisfaction in life? That's an easy answer. Managing your expectations. Managing your expectations. That's what I would say to you. At Matt's Celtics. That's who wrote that question. Matt's, M-A-T-T-S, Celtics, as in the Boston Celtics. What would you say is the key to gaining satisfaction in life? It's managing your expectations. Think about where frustration, anxiety, dare I say even depression, or at the very least disappointment emanates from. It emanates from our expectations. We have somebody in our life. We have job opportunities, or so we think. We have career aspirations and stuff like that. Our expectations are usually what dictates our level of anxiety, or dare I say our disappointments. When we manage our expectations, we're much, much better off. When we don't, we don't. We lose. You ever find yourself, I'll go the relationship route. You ever find yourself incredibly hurt and disappointed by a woman? It's usually because you expected more. When you didn't expect shit from them, you ain't disappointed. When there's very little they expected from you, they're really disappointed. It's when you have the expectations that things go awry. Why do you think things get so ugly sometimes in divorce courts and things of that nature? It's because people had expectations. They walk down that aisle, for better or worse, through thickness and health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years in, neither y'all want each other. And you're pissed off that you're in this situation. So you want to hurt one another. That's when you're going after money and doing all of this stuff. It's when you want to hurt somebody. When you want to inflict pain, emotional pain and stuff like that, because that's what was done to you, or so you believe. That's what happens. Managing expectations. Career-wise, what happens? You get yourself and people get in your face and they're convincing you, yo, we could do this. You'll have this job opportunity. You'll make this salary. This is what you'll do. And then all of a sudden it falls through. And you're pissed off and you're disappointed. And depression kicks in and what have you, because your expectations weren't managed. Why you think going to church or whatever religion you may possess, whatever religious sanctuary you adopt, why do you think doing that is so important? Because it reminds you there's a higher source, a higher power than you. And when you have that reminder emanating through your mind and your heart and your soul, all of a sudden you're allowing things to just rub off your shoulders because you say it's in God's hands. It's not mine. And you're able to move forward and things don't affect you as profoundly as they normally would, because expectations, to some degree anyway, are squashed by the reality of things being out of your control and leaving it into the hands of a higher power that doesn't necessarily have to acquiesce to that level of supervision because he is the higher power. That's where it comes from. Managing your expectations. The less you expect, the less disappointed you can be. And the less disappointed you are, the easier your life is. I hope that answers your question. I'm about to get on out of here. I thank y'all for joining the show, listening in, tuning in. Feel free to do so. The Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube will be coming at you from a different location in the days to come, meaning Wednesday and Friday. Stay tuned to find out where I'll be and what I'll be talking about. Until then, this is Stephen A. signing off. Peace and love, everybody.